Welcome, welcome, YouTube. It's Clear Vision Wednesday time. I am Claudia Mühlenweg. I'm the founder of the Natural Clear Vision Institute and the Natural Clear Vision Method. And this show, this weekly show, is all about vision and eyesight and how we take care of our eyes. And if that is of any interest to you, and I would be crazy if it wasn't of interest to you, make sure you subscribe. Click the little bell icon so you get notified because pretty much every single week of the year we go live here. And we had some great episodes in the last few weeks. So make sure to look at my channel. There's so much good stuff about vision. Today's topic is a basic one, but a really good one because this is something I hear all the time: eye strain. And most people say, oh, when I'm working on screens, I get eye strain. But what does it actually mean, eye strain? Eye strain can mean itchy eyes, tired eyes, just feeling like exhausted. They could be red, anything. And maybe if you're watching live, type in the chat box what is kind of experience you have with eye strain. Maybe the eyes are itchy or like little twitching, but a lot of people experience eye strain. Now, the number one thing to know about eye strain is that it's always connected to mental strain. We don't have eye strain if we don't have mental strain. So we cannot separate those two and just always just look at the eyeballs if they're like too, like, oh, we just got to be straining right now. That's not how it works. We see in the brain anyway. So in the brain is how we process visual information and all kinds of other information from the other senses, obviously. But we have to remember that. And I love the quote by Dr. William Bates. He was the forefather of natural vision improvement. And he said, the fact is that when the mind is at rest, nothing can tire the eyes. And when the mind is under a strain, nothing can rest them. Anything that rests the mind will benefit the eyes. Now, that might sound a little cryptic to you, but the point is there's always a connection to mental strain. And undoing that and figuring out what triggers that is really the key, in addition to the 5 things I teach you today. But I want you to think, so eye strain is mental strain. And then we have different forms of mental strain. So a farsighted person probably strains more at the near point, whereas a nearsighted person might strain more at the distance, right? But here's the interesting thing. You might think, well, if it's blurry, we're straining because we're trying to see clearly and we squint our eyes and those kind of like muscular tensions. But why do people strain with glasses on? I see so many people straining their eyes despite wearing the correction needed for their vision. So that doesn't explain the fact that if your vision is blurry or clear, there is still eye strain. Again, it comes back to mental strain. Another thing is bad habits. So I see bad habits in nearsighted folks. I sometimes see the bad habit of like zoning out, like you're parking your eyes somewhere in space. You've done that where you're like, hello, somebody here. So you're parking your eyes, you're staring. That's one thing. And another thing, especially when it comes to screens, there is a connection of not blinking enough that dries out the eyes. And obviously, our human eye is designed to see 3D objects in space. We have been living in a physical world, and now we have these screens, and there is additional complication of seeing kind of 3D, but it's on a flat screen. And that is a strain for the eye. That's a mental strain for the brain. So screens are more tricky than, let's say, reading a book, but we see eye strain in all kinds of scenarios. It doesn't matter if you're driving, if you're reading a book, if you're looking at a computer. So let's break this down basically. Bates talked about if the mind is not at rest, nothing can if the mind is at rest, nothing can tire the eyes. And if the mind is under a strain, nothing can rest them. So a lot of Bates teachers, we talk about, and that's my foundation, we talk about something called palming. And I know many vision therapists and other people make fun of this fact that we do palming. They're like, well, why would you close your eyes to see better? Because it's the easiest way to rest your mind. And that's when we meditate. Usually, you might look at a drishti, but most people close their eyes when they meditate because it's easier to go inward and focus on relaxation than when the eyes are open and we get distracted by all the stuff happening. So palming or closing the eyes is a great way to kind of take out all the external distractions and come back to yourself. Now, if your mind is going, oh my God, what else do I have to do today? After shopping, I have to go to this, I have to meeting with so and so. That's where meditation comes, and you constantly bring your mind back to whatever it is, the mantra, the breath. With Bates's original teachings, we talked about a favorable object or foundation object or something that brings you joy. And you're like, you think of it, a person, a pet, a place, imaginary or real, but something where you go like, yeah, could be a little mini vacation in your mind. Maybe you're sitting at that beach, but that's a really great way. And you can simply close your eyes, bring up whatever that thing is. For some people, again, it's a pet, a cat, or a dog, or a place. The beach is a common thing, or being in the forest. You just take a few deep breaths and you connect with that, and you immediately release that strain that you have. So palming is basically closing your eyes, and then you cover your closed eyes with your cupped hands. It has the additional benefit of the sensory nerve endings in the hands touching your face. We know from like havening and other techniques that self-touch is very calming to the nervous system. So you create that additional layer of relaxation when you palm your eyes. And because it's warm and really dark, the eyes are in this dark little cocoon. So it's even easier for the eyes to relax. I always think of like a flotation tank. It's really easy when you cover your eyes, but you don't have to. If you just close your eyes, that alone will give you a release from strain. Now, a mini version of that is blinking. When we blink, not only do we close our eyes for a split second, we also help to have the tear film stay intact. So blinking is one of the things that people with great vision always do a lot. Every, at least every 2 seconds, you want to blink. And when we look at screens, we have found in studies that we blink less. So when we work on screens, and maybe you caught yourself doing this, you kind of start like looking at the screen and you're super focused with your mind. And when we are hyper focused, in a way, we tend to blink less. We also don't necessarily breathe well. So catching yourself blinking, I had to train myself to blink at screens. I initially didn't do that. And that's why we get dry eyes. That's a form of eye strain, right? It's like dry eyes, itchy eyes, tired eye. Blink, 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 blink. That's all I can say. Your eyes will be more lubricated when you blink more, and we will prevent that staring thing. So blinking is one of those things that you can do to prevent eye strain, because the second you blink more, you stop staring and it helps you relax. Now, the third thing, and this is a favorite of also eye doctors, they always say the 20-20-20 rule. You might have heard that. I don't like that rule because I feel like it's totally impractical. I'm always about things that you actually do, because anything you do is better than fancy titles for rules that you will never use anyway. The point of this rule is every 20 minutes, so think of screens, we're looking at screens or reading a book, doesn't really matter. Every 20 minutes, for 20 seconds, look up and look 20 feet in the distance. Now, I don't know about you. I would never set a timer for every 20 minutes and another for 20 seconds and then find something 20 feet. It's way too complicated. What I usually say is if you read a book, put a bookmark into the page, into the next page. When you hit that page, look up, look around the room. It's great to have interesting things to look at that you actually like looking at. If you have a lot of clutter, that's a whole different topic. But if you have a lot of clutter in your house, you might not like looking at that. It doesn't have to be 20 feet away. The eyes relax when we look in the distance, but it doesn't have to be the horizon level distance. If you just look at something even, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet away, that's better than not looking away from the book or the screen, because our eyes make more of a muscular engagement when we look up close versus looking far. Another thing, so the bookmark is a good thing. Having a computer at a window, mine is at a window. I just have to look up and I can see really far across the street. So I'm all about making your environment work for your vision versus trying to force yourself into remembering rules, because we won't. We won't. So that's another way. Look far away, have something interesting to look at. And obviously, the best time to do that, or the best opportunity, is daylight. And that brings us to the fourth eye strain hack. Number 4 is natural light. Artificial light is not good for our whole biology. We now know this, finally. We've known this for hundreds of years, but somehow the science had to catch up to that. So it destroys our circadian clock and the melatonin release, all these things. We don't have to get into that, but we want natural light as much as possible. And I get the question all the time. It's overcast. It's like can I do it through a window? It's snowing, it's not bright. You still get natural light, you just get less. Through the windows, unless you live in a really old house with single pane actual glass windows, most modern windows have energy efficiency coating, so you do not get the full spectrum into your eyes. But getting natural light will help you with your whole biology in a way so you don't get so tired, you don't get brain fogged, you sleep well, and that will help your vision in the long term. So going outside, no sunglasses, just getting some natural light into your eyes, either sunrise, sunset, that's a great time to do that, even in the middle of if it's like a hot climate, because it's cool enough. There's no UV light first or after sunrise, so it's really safe if you are concerned about natural sunlight hitting your eyes. But right now we're heading into winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, and so usually we don't get enough light. In fact, when I work with people privately, I ask them, how many hours do you spend outside a day? And most people said like 30 minutes, an hour tops. And so we spend so much time indoors under this artificial junk light that really affects, that causes eye strain, that extremely like fluorescent light, the little flicker, also the flicker from screens. So getting out, getting some natural light, and even if you just walk around the block, or I don't know, sometimes I take out the trash cans or go to the mailbox, whatever excuse I have to walk outside or water the plants, whatever it is. And if it's snow, maybe go outside, shovel some snow, but find something to go outside like as frequently as you can. And then the last point is acupressure. So we have acupressure points. I have many friends that are traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. There's several points that we can use to release tension. And the one point I like a lot is kind of like, I'm not going to go in the right order right now, but the middle of the eyebrows, right above your pupils. That is a great point for mental strain, excessive studying, like that strain that we're talking about from screens. So you can just press a little bit in there. You can just kind of make little circles. Any way it feels good. There is a little divot. You can feel it in your bone. There's a little indentation in your bone. So that's a great spot to just kind of pause for a moment and maybe massage it a little bit. And then we obviously have other points around the eyes. We have one on the edge, on the end of the eyebrows. That is just a general good point for the eyes. So that's a good one. And maybe you notice if it feels really relaxed, you might not have to stay there very long. And then we have a great point for at the corners of the eye. So don't ever press on the eye. It's on the edges, on the bony part of your eye socket. This is a great point for if you're really light sensitive, if you have red eyes, sore eyes, if they're dry and itchy. So this is a really great point. Blurry vision, maybe you have headaches. Again, you can just press or press and release. You can make little circles, go the other way. I'm a big fan of not overthinking. Oh, do I do this technique exactly right? Just get some touch there and notice, how does it feel? Breathe. Okay, and then we have a good spot there's actually several spots, but one right under the pupil, number 7. That's a really great spot overall. There's also a little indentation in your bone. You will see that in your bone. That's like a really one of the main points for the eyes in the Chinese medicine. So right under the eyes. And then the one spot or two spots we haven't done yet is the spot on the inner edge of the eyebrow. That's a really great point overall for for like if you worry about vision loss, if you have eye diseases, if you have we have those, what do you call those? The 11 lines here, right? When we do a lot of frowning. So I sometimes like to pull it a little bit apart also. You can obviously massage your third eye. And then the last point, you want to have clean hands, is like the inner eye. So obviously, again, no, we're not touching the eye itself, on the inner edge of the eye. This is also really helpful for like overall for the eyes. So just getting a little massage there. And I sometimes like to just pinch the bridge of my nose a little bit, just resetting. And then last week, we had a great lesson by Abigail Davis, and we were talking about the eyebrows, how we can release tension in the eyebrows. At the end of the day, whatever you do is going to be better than nothing. So even if you don't know the exact spots, I usually notice that one eye has a little bit more tension. So finding those spots will be really helpful. And then one last thing that I like to do sometimes, especially if you have twitchy eyelids or just feels very, very, very gently, use your three fingers. So no pinky, no thumb. And very, very gently, you close your eyes, you rest your fingers on your eyelids. No pressure whatsoever. You just gently rest them there. Take a few deep breaths, and you might notice you can actually feel your eyeball that way. And again, coming up to a happy memory, just really gently letting your hands, just the weight of your fingers, just a little bit rest on those eyeballs might feel like a really great way to release some of the strain. So let me look at the chat and see if there's any messages in the YouTube live channel that I can answer. So muscles feel strained, itchy and red. Okay, so burning eyes. I also really encourage everybody, I call it strains and gains. Notice when you have eye strain. Some people are say, oh, it's computers, but is it just computers? Is it also certain tasks you're doing? Is it certain people you're hanging out with? Is it certain environments? The more we connect the dots, because remember, it's always a connection to mental strain. Maybe it is when we go to a party because we're introverted and we don't like to socialize. I would really encourage you to connect more the dots in when you feel that. And when eyes are burning or tired, calming your eyes is going to be so helpful. If it's hot outside, I sometimes like to put literally the old cucumber slices on there, chamomile tea bags. At the end of the day, do something that feels good to you versus what is the perfect routine, right? The things that we end up doing and what we notice is so much more valuable than following some perfect rule. So hopefully that was helpful. Eye floaters, we have a whole training on eye floaters in the YouTube channel. You can search for that. Also done by a Chinese medicine doctor, my friend Dr. Jane Dabu. And that is also connected to liver qi and all over our overall systemic health in our eyes. So the floaters are just a representation. They can also be related to strain and stress, just like all vision problems. So, mental strain, mental stress, and the physical stress in the body cannot be separated. They always go hand in hand. And hopefully, my 5 tips are helpful for you to do something before you feel eye strain, right? At least initially, you might do it when you feel it, and then you kind of prepare yourself. You know, oh, I'm doing a task, or I'm on the screen, and I know screens are kind of tricky for me. So maybe you take frequent breaks. Maybe you set a timer, especially if we're on social media, can be really addictive, right? You do the scroll, totally been guilty of that. So maybe put a timer up or have one of those apps or settings that locks your phone. Or if you're an iPhone, you can set it up where if you hold it too close, there's a warning and it pop like screen distance. It's called screen distance. So whatever you have to do to support your vision, please do that. And hopefully the 5 tips that are all easy to do will be helpful for you to have your vision in great shape and prevent eye strain. And wearing too strong of glasses can also be an eye strain. I didn't talk about that today. Looking at colors, maybe there's a color that you find particularly calming. Look at colors that you like to look at, right? So that could be another way. And we will have an expert next year coming into the show talking about clutter. We already have an episode. So if you are somebody who struggles with clutter, watch that episode because we literally don't want to see it. That's a cause of strain. If you live in a place that's cluttered and you're not liking it, and who does like that? That might be a reason why you don't want to look in your house. So just some other hinters or pointers. Thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe. We have great guests coming up every single week and sometimes solo episodes like this one.